This year was an okay year for games. Yes, we had some of the best video games of all time released, but we also had yet another year of massive layoffs. And in the case of Tango Gameworks, entire development companies being shut down, with January seeing a record-breaking 5,995 industry-wide layoffs. Now, as far as AAA games are concerned, my Game of the Year decision has been a month-long struggle between Astro Bot and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I think they're both two of the best games I've ever played, and I truly can't decide what should get Game of the Year. Astro Bot won Game of the Year at the Game Awards, so let's go with that. So, in lieu of doing a proper top 10 list, I wanted to highlight the amazing world of indie games with my first ever indie top 10 list. As always, it's worth mentioning I did not play every single indie game that came out this year, so if a game is missing from this list that you think should be there, I simply probably just didn't play it. Coming in at number 10, we have Secrets of Grindia. Secrets of Grindia is so low on the list because it's the game on this list that I played the least. The main game mode is fun, but the roguelike mode is super fun. So I mainly spent my time with the game playing that game mode, and I didn't feel comfortable putting the game any higher having barely experienced the main game mode. Both game modes are fun for different reasons. I just got so engrossed in the roguelike mode that I've yet to really sink my teeth into the main story mode that much. I recommend this game to anyone who likes RPGs, specifically games like Cat Quest and Secret of Mana. If you're finding the main game mode lacking for any reason, you can always take a break and try the roguelike mode. Fear the Spotlight is the first entry in the Blumhouse Games developed indie horror games that was teased at Summer Game Fest. All of those games looked really neat. This one, however, was definitely the breakout, so it makes sense they released this one first, and it met my expectation. This game has everything that makes a good horror game good. It has good stealth mechanics, very little combat, and a great story. And this game does one of my favorite things that narrative video games do. If you don't mind a small spoiler related to formatting, not actual story, once you beat the game as the main character, you unlock the option to play the entire game over again from the beginning as a different character. This next game is called Buckshot Roulette. It's the perfect example of someone having an idea for a game that doesn't yet exist, and then actually falling through and making it so it does now exist, which, if I can be honest, is one of my favorite traits of indie games. This game is horror adjacent. It's sort of got a spooky vibe, but there's no actual jump scares or anything like that. The gameplay loop is very simple. You play an in-universe Russian roulette-style shooting game called Buckshot Roulette. Each time you play, it gets harder. You play 4 or 5 times, and then you win. You could probably beat the whole game in under 20 minutes, and once you do, you unlock infinite mode. So if you were really, really enjoying yourself, you can continue playing. The next game is called Indica, and I'm going to bet that you've never heard of it. It was developed by 11-Bit Studios, and this game has a lot to say about religion, but it also has a lot to say about video games and video game development. I've heard other people say this, and I think it rings true, so I want to echo their sentiment here. This game was made intentionally bad, but in a good way. It kind of gives me the same vibe as Pathologic 2, and usually comparing a video game to Pathologic 2 would be a bad thing, but not in the case of Indica. Indica, like Pathologic 2, is a game that I think everyone who calls themselves a fan of video games should be forced to play at least once. Backpack Battles is, in my opinion, the best entry in the recent trend of making video games based off the inventory management system from the video game Resident Evil 4. These games are very simple. You collect items, you rearrange them in a bag, Resident Evil 4 style, and you gain power-ups and abilities based on how you stack them in the bag. Some of these games are puzzle games, some of them are RPGs, and Backpack Battles is a 1v1 auto battler similar to Super Auto Pets. So basically you set up a bag, press go, and you wait to see what happens. If you lose a heart. If you win, you get more money to get more items. Very simple, very effective, very fun. While it technically hasn't released yet, it's still in beta or alpha or whatever, you cannot talk about video games in 2024 without talking about Pal World and the amazing run it's had so far. This game was the most downloaded game in Steam history for the month that it released. There are dozens of Pokemon clones that come out each year. This one, however, was one of the only ones that was so popular it actually garnered the legal attention of Nintendo. In my opinion, Nintendo is the bad guy in this situation because this game is almost nothing like Pokemon. Yes, you catch monsters in sphere-shaped objects, and that is basically where the comparison stops. If you've ever played a survival game like Ark or Rust or 7 Days to Die, you've played Pal World, except Pal World has Pokemon you can fight alongside, and also you can make them do your dirty work. Oh, and there's guns. Probably should have mentioned that. Last December, The Plucky Squire was my most anticipated game of 2024. It took a while to get here, but once it got here, it delivered on everything it set out to be. I recommend this game to everyone. The only reason it's not higher on the list is because it's kind of hand-holdy, way too many tutorials, way too many explanations, etc. I heard they recently released a patch that fixed this, so maybe this point I'm making is completely mute, but the version of the game I played almost felt like I was playing a game for children at certain points. And maybe I was. I definitely play games for kids sometimes. Astrobot, for one, is definitely a game that children could play and enjoy. Not to mention all those Lego games, of which I've played quite a few. But other than that, I cannot recommend this game enough. I can't believe this game is so low on the list, but you'll see why. Balatro is absolutely the best roguelike to come out this year. Possibly the greatest roguelike to come out in the last 10 years. This game is everything it could be, and it's everything I wanted it to be. With no poker knowledge actually required to play, I recommend this game to all roguelike fans. And I also recommend this game to people who have never played roguelikes before. I think this would be a great entry point. It has the perfect cross-section of simple and complex. It's very simple to learn how to play, and it houses some very complex mechanics, which is a trait all the best roguelikes possess. So I vaguely had my eye on Another Crab's Treasure in 2023, but the more I heard about it, the more excited I got. Another Crab's Treasure is the most unique Souls-like I've ever played. It has everything a good Souls-like needs. All the mechanics you expect and more, with one standout. In this game, you play as a hermit crab, which just so happens to be one of my favorite animals of all time, by the way. And as you play, you collect different items to use as shells. Each shell has its own unique ability and defensive power, and if you'll notice, none of these shells are actually shells. They're all trash. Because Another Crab's Treasure has what I think is an incredibly important message. The ocean is full of trash, and if you're sick of hearing about this, too bad. It's getting worse every day, the ocean is fucked, the planet is fucked, and you'll see that on full display when you play this game. See you on Mars, y'all. And my number one indie game of the year is unquestionably, unequivocally UFO 50. UFO 50 caught me off guard. I didn't know it existed until it was already out, but basically, the guy who made Spelunky, Derek Yu, and 5 of his game developer friends made 50 fully formed indie games over the last 8 years and sat on them so they could release them all at once in one mega pack, reminiscent of the old NES 50-in-1 packs. Each game is a fully fleshed out video game, not some WarioWare style minigame. One of them is a 60-hour RPG, one of them is a Hitman-style side-scrolling stealth game, a full 3-hour horror game, multiple platformers, a GTA-style crazy taxi game, and 2 golf games, one that combines components of golf and pinball, and another that's a full Legend of Zelda-style RPG, but you play as a golf ball. Like I was talking about earlier, more often than not in the world of indie games, you will find games that you have literally never seen before. That's what's so great about games like Balatro, and Another Crab's Treasure, and Buckshot Roulette. There's never been a game like these games before these games were made. And it's only in the world of indie games that this happens. Rarely does this phenomenon happen in AAA games. Most of the video games in UFO 50 are like this. A truly unique experience of a video game that I have never encountered before. If any of these games actually came out on the NES, they would be the best game on the entire console by far. Because the games in UFO 50 are classic NES-style games made with modern-day gaming sensibilities. These games couldn't and wouldn't have existed back in the day. Not to mention, this game did the one thing I was hoping it would do when I found out that this game existed. I won't spoil too much, because I really think everybody watching this video should play this game for themselves, but there is a through line. If you play every single game in UFO 50, there is a massive riddle for you to solve. So in addition to 50 brand new games for the price of half of one new AAA game, you have a compelling meta-narrative to keep you entertained. So, for all those reasons and more, far too many to enumerate in this video, UFO 50 gets my indie game of the year. It is by far the game I played the most this year. It is by far the most fun I had with a game this year. And this year, Final Fantasy Rebirth came out, and I'm on record saying that that was one of the best games I've ever played in my whole life. So, Happy New Year. Please play indie games, even if they're not the ones on my list. It's an amazing part of an industry that's seen better days, and I promise you, you'll find one you'll love. Thank you for watching. My name is Thunder, representing 1/7 of Thunder and Lightning Gaming. Thank you for 2024. and we hope to see you in 2025.